Good morning, everybody. This is Chris Perkins here, broker owner of Coldwell Banker Maritime Realty. And today I've invited Rannoch Harley, who is the Director of Loss Adjusting for Crawford and Company in Atlantic Canada. And the reason we're doing this is we want to just provide some information for anyone who is evacuated or affected by these forest fires. How the insurance, the claim process works, and how adjusters are assigned and all those things. So, Rannoch, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, you bet, Chris. Happy to be here and happy to impart whatever I can to help.
Yeah, appreciate that. So, I remember when I was in McMurray and when we were evacuated, I was just, overwhelmed at first, and I didn't understand the process of, if my house was damaged, well, what do I do? So, could you just talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, sure thing. And so I'll talk about our company a little bit first, maybe. So, Crawford and Company, we just celebrated actually our 82nd anniversary on May 27th. And so we're the largest publicly listed independent provider of claims management and outsourcing solutions. As independent adjusters, we basically support organizations and insurance companies in investigating and evaluating insurance claims. We have another suite of services, other things that we do technologically as well, but our core business is loss adjusting and investigating claims. So to that end, we help gather information, survey damages, assist policyholders recover when they have an occurrence that's covered under insurance claim. So I think organizationally, part of our value proposition really is our independence. So we are not part of an insurer, we are a third party. And so I think the public can feel some comfort when we are involved in that we are unbiased and we are just reviewing a contract of insurance. So that's a bit about Crawford. Happy to launch right into sort of the claims process if that's what you want to talk about next, and what a person can do when they're going through this.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So in general, if a person has a policy of insurance, the process begins with them contacting their brokerage or their insurer directly, whether that's calling in or submitting a claim electronically. In a lot of cases, insurance companies do leverage independent adjusters for after-hours service if something happens, outside of sort of 9 to 5 in a lot of cases. So there are circumstances where Crawford or another independent adjuster can get involved right out of the gate if a claim is reported. But in general, a person calls into contacts their insurance company, relays what's happened to them. They take some information down, provide some starting steps, and otherwise they assign an adjuster, whether that's internally within the company or whether they immediately contact ourselves or a firm like us to get us connecting with their policyholder to help provide some advice out of the gate.
Okay. And so I remember, like, every adjuster is different, right? So I remember when I first got back to my house in McMurray and we went through the property, and the way that it was so terrible because he was like, oh, we have to replace the siding, we have to do the roof, we have to change the windows because the seals are probably compromised. And after we had gone through it, I was like, my house may as well have burned down. And then I got a second opinion, and I had hardy plank siding, which is concrete essentially. My windows were fine. So, like, how does that work? Like, is an adjuster just an independent opinion? Can you get a second opinion, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I'd say if we want to start at when a person is presenting a claim or when they first arrive home and are assessing damage, firstly, just be conscious of safety above all. So there are, if we're talking about this current occurrence, of course, there's air quality warnings and other things to consider when you return to a site after having not been there. Just be careful when you're surveying your own property, where you're stepping. Conditions may have changed since you were last there. In some cases, they've changed drastically. So just make sure people are being safe above all. When you start to assess things, I would say it's really important. Just take some photographs, get a sense of how things were, how they are now, and take stock of what you're seeing. Throughout the process, whether it's an internal adjuster with an insurance company or whether it's outsourced through a company like my own, they'll be gathering facts primarily at the front end. So they'll ask you a number of questions about the home itself, about what's transpired. They may ask about materials engaged, but the adjuster themselves, I mean, their core function, they will survey property, but the core function is to interpret the policy of insurance correctly. So they're going to be focused on reviewing the policy that a particular individual holds. And they will also be leveraging other outside parties, restoration contractors, people with expertise in building assessment to get an understanding of what's been compromised, what hasn't. So, I mean, there are many cases. I mean, you're right. Every adjuster is different with different levels of experience and expertise, but chiefly their role is in relation to the insurance contract. And in cases where other expert opinion is required, those parties are often retained by the insurer or by the independent adjuster on behalf of the insurer.
Okay. And you mentioned remediation companies. So is this something that, like, how much do people have to worry about organizing themselves versus how much you would organize for them?
An important thing to mention is that every policy of insurance is different. So it's hard for me to broad brush everything, but chiefly I would say some of the important items are the insurance company, they will do their utmost to try and get an assessment of what's going on. So they will contact parties to survey property damages, but in some cases where we have labor shortages or difficulty accessing restoration contractors or other building experts, ultimately it is incumbent on a policyholder to submit their claim. So in a lot of cases, in a conventional case where there's adequate supply, out of the gate, often insurance companies will retain a restoration contractor or other building expert to survey things. In some cases that can be delayed, or you can have conversations with the insurer or the adjuster about other avenues to assess damage. In some cases, a particular person has a contact in construction or other field where they may leverage that and have them submit an estimate or submit their own perspective on findings. And often cases with insurance companies, they will try to get multiple parties to survey a scene to provide opinion, both on cause, damages, etc.
Right. So the insurance company could potentially arrange it for you. You could also do it on your own as well to try and move things ahead faster if you wanted.
You could. It may well, and often it is the case that they will want a secondary opinion. So they still may have another avenue that they want to secure to ensure accuracy. But yes.
Okay. And then how would this process differ? I mean, maybe it doesn't differ at all between, I have smoke damage and, I have to get my fridge replaced and, maybe the attic insulation, whatever, versus a total loss.
Yeah. So if the question is just on partial damages versus total, a situation of a total loss or a constructive total loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, ostensibly the process begins much the same in that it's fact finding and getting an understanding of the building and the property involved. And often cases with something like this as well, I mean, people are displaced, so that it really can be similar from the outset. As you secure more information, if a loss is deemed to be a total loss or a constructive total loss, meaning that, perhaps it hasn't burned down and is gone all the way to the foundation, but perhaps it's just not efficient to attempt a repair in lieu of a rebuild. In those cases, effectively, there's just more third-party involvement to arrive at what is appropriate. And what I mean by that is, it could involve bid tenders. It could involve another third party in that process, more contractor involvement, providing scoping assistance on what is appropriate. It can involve engineers, that kind of thing. So I would say what it involves is typically a longer displacement period, more documentation, more use of third parties to ensure accuracy and ensure what the appropriate course is. And also in the case of where a person has lost all their personal property, again, it can involve a more laborious process detailing everything to the best ability of the person as well as the insurance company that was in the home and that suffered damage.
Right.
Yeah.
So I imagine you've dealt with this. Have you ever dealt with forest fires before?
Oh, many times. I mean, so I have myself, and I responded to the Fort McMurray losses myself. So I was actually in Fort McMurray post occurrence then. Um, but our company has a long history dealing with wildfire events, and we'll be doing so again now.
Right. And so, is there any advice? Because you've been through, you obviously have extensive history. Then, is there any advice you can give people? Because everyone's going to be feeling emotional, overwhelmed. What can we tell people to help?
Yeah, it's a horrible occurrence. It is incredibly charged with emotion, and I'm feeling a little bit encouraged that we have better weather on the horizon right now here in Nova Scotia. So we actually had a little bit of rain overnight, and we're going to have more later this evening and throughout the weekend. Um, so, but it's a horrible thing to undergo. I haven't gone through it myself personally, so I've only experienced it on this side. Um, in this particular case, if you've been displaced, one of the first things I would do, the Nova Scotia government, in conjunction with Canadian Red Cross, has made financial assistance available for those displaced in evacuation areas. So I'd say it's a good idea to go to the Red Cross website. Yeah, I believe it's just redcross.ca, and you should see a link there to register for the financial assistance program. I believe it's up to $500 at present. I would start there. If you are not familiar, of course, if you are displaced, continuing to be displaced, believe you've suffered fire damage or smoke damage to your home, I would contact your insurance broker or your insurer and get that process underway. It is important. If you have knowledge of your policy, that's great. Many people don't. If you have an electronic copy, it's a good idea to take a look at it. It's a good idea to be familiar with your deductible. Your deductible for a covered claim, it's effectively the portion that is the responsibility of the homeowner or policyholder before the insurer would be responsible to make any indemnity payment. So important to have some familiarity with that if you can. In a lot of cases, when people have to leave suddenly, they don't have the policy to hand, and that's okay. But ideally, if you feel you've suffered damage, I would contact the broker or insurer. It's important to take photographs and document things. It's important to save receipts. If you've been displaced, keep track of all of your incursions. When you return home, if you're disposing of things, take photographs before doing so. Take photographs of the home. I'm trying to think what else is really pertinent out of the gate, Chris.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm writing notes as well. I know we're recording this, but it's valuable information to me, and I've been through this once already. So hopefully everyone else will think so as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know that in my experience, is just people are overwhelmed because they're looking at the big picture, and I think it's just like slow down, one step at a time, lean on you in your profession, and it's one day at a time, really.
Yeah, I think that's a good bit of advice. I think it's, again, I haven't been through this personally. I've never lost my home. I think it must be very, very challenging not to see things advance sometimes as quickly as you feel they should. I think it's important for people to try to be patient as best they can while things are reviewed. And it's always difficult in a circumstance like this when you have a tremendous number of people affected. I mean, there's 16,000 plus folks evacuated, multiple structure fires, etc. Sometimes things don't happen as quickly as people would like. Well, of course, I mean, the insurance company will try to leverage all their resources they can to assist. But yeah, I'd say try to stay patient. Above all, stay safe and just be prudent. Keep track of what is happening. Keep track of your cost incursions. Take photographs. Leverage whoever you're working with to ask questions, be that your broker, an independent adjuster. Ultimately, our process, we are trying to help homeowners, businesses, communities recover from these kinds of things. And so we want to be as helpful as we can when it comes to giving advice on process. We try to do that both written and verbally throughout this ordeal.
Yeah, and you're doing that today for everyone too. So we really appreciate your time, Rannoch. It was great. And I will provide my contact information to everybody. So I can definitely relay some questions to Rannoch if we have other questions. Okay.
Terrific, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.